Hey everybody. Okay, you guys probably are familiar with a rock band called the Pretenders, right? They were really big during the late 70s, throughout the 80s, early 90s. Lead songwriter was a woman named Chrissy Hine. On their first album, they had a song called Precious, right? And for decades, I thought the line was in the song, like Howard the Duck and Doctor Strange trapped in a world they never made. For years, I thought that's what the line was, but then I later found out the line is actually like Howard the Duck and Mr. Stress trapped in a world that they never made. And I was a little bit disappointed, not because I have anything against Mr. Stress, who I guess was like a local rock musician from Cleveland. But I just like the idea of like Chrissy Hines back in the mid '70s reading Doctor Strange and Howard the Duck comics. And if she had been reading Doctor Strange comics, she'd probably be reading, or would have been reading, some of the stuff that we're going to look at today. What I've got here is Doctor Strange Special Edition number 1 from 1982. Or no, 82. And what it really is, though, is a reprint of some mid-70s Doctor Strange comics from 1974-75. What it is, it reprints issues 1, issue 2, issue 4, and issue 5 of a story by Steve Englehart and Frank Brunner, which became known as the Silver Dagger saga. And issue 3 was actually, I believe, some Stan Lee, Steve Ditko reprints. Oh, that's another funny thing. Just to digress for a moment. I don't know why, but I just think this is funny. I remember reading something where Stan Lee wrote about how, like, back in the old days of Marvel, Marvel started getting popular, and he started doing like lectures, going around to colleges and things like that, and people, of course, would start asking him, where certain characters came from and where he got his ideas from and stuff like that. And Doctor Strange would come up and somebody would, ask something to the effect of like, oh, did you study, the Dead Sea Scrolls? Did you, do a lot of research into like ancient texts and civilizations and old religions and things like that? And Stan would hem and haw and say something like, oh, well, maybe I read something like that once upon a time and kind of retained it subconsciously or something and move on. And then he said, he said that he used to say that because initially at the time he didn't have the heart to just come out and say, well, that he was just making up words. He would make up like nonsense words and say them out loud and then just write them down, if they sounded good. And, Dormammu, or the Eye of Agamotto and all that type of stuff. And, I don't know, I just think it's funny because it's like, starry-eyed, young people. Mr. Lee, you must have done some intense research. Nah, I just made up some nonsense just to entertain some kids. Okay, anyway, moving along. This particular story, it's a pretty interesting story. I had a lot of fun with it. Basically, it starts out with Doc and Clea and Wong, just hanging around the house, and all of a sudden, Doctor Strange is attacked by a man calling himself the Silver Dagger. He basically captures Clea and steals the Eye of Agamotto, and he stabs Doctor Strange in the back with a knife. He runs off or whatever. They think Doctor Strange is dead, but, Doc's still alive, and he struggles to get to his feet, and he makes it to something called the Orb of Agamotto, and he uses his magic to try to heal himself, and at the same time try to divine, what's going on with this person. And what happens is, for whatever reason, the magic goes a little bit out of control, and he finds himself sucked into the Orb of Agamotto. And there he is in this unreal world, this unreal universe, where, at some point, it seems like he's being driven mad by various apparitions and things. He has to fight all these sorts of, he has to overcome these sort of, sorceress challenges. He has to overcome these kind of metaphysical ideas. and and make his way back to the real world so he can save Klee and stop the Silver Dagger. Some of the things it's just really kind of weird and strange and trippy. You figure it's like the mid-70s. Pop culture in general is still kind of coming off that kind of post-psychedelic, haze and things like that, and, science fiction-y type things are still big, so you can still put really weird, far-out cosmic ideas into, a mainstream comic book, Doc's in there when he first gets into the orb, he meets a caterpillar that's smoking a hookah, at one point, he sees he's going across, the landscape or whatever, and he sees these strange figures, and it's suggested that these are 3 of the 4, horsemen of the apocalypse. It's not actually said that's who they are, but, it's kind of inferred, Another point, he meets other characters that seem to be Marvel superheroes, but they're not quite right, and, and maybe they're real, but maybe they're probably not. Maybe they're just corrupted memories that, Doc has for them, of them, I should say. He has to he has to face the spirit of death and overcome mortality and things like that. So it's really interesting. The story is written by Steve Englehart. At the time I think he might still have been writing Captain America and the Avengers for Marvel Comics, and the story is pretty clear. For all the spaciness and the trippiness and the weirdness and things like that, it's actually pretty direct. It's really easy to follow. Things are not, what do I want to say? They're not too obtuse or whatever. I mean, it's a hard story to describe, but if you read the actual comic, it's not hard to, it's not hard to follow. That's what I want to say. And it's pretty great because, you get all these, of course, you get the mystical monsters and demons and otherworldly beings, but you also get, various kind of, like I said, metaphysical concepts thrown in there as well. And, I really like his depiction of Doc. Doc is, he's a wise man, he's a strong man, but he also has kind of a sense of humor. He's also a thoughtful guy. He's somebody who seems to be willing to learn lessons and also learn from his mistakes, even at the point, even at the, I guess, the station that he's at as the Sorcerer Supreme, he still realizes that, there are things in the universe that even he doesn't know. So that's a good, so that's an interesting aspect of the story. The illustration is by Frank Brunner. Frank Brunner, is pretty popular for doing, comic book art and lots of fantasy and science fiction art back during that time period. I think, I'm not too sure what else he's done for Marvel and DC. I know he's done some of the earlier issues of Howard the Duck. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else that he was doing regularly that I know of. But I know I'm going to feel like a dunce because somebody's going to say, he drew this comic, you jerk! But this is the stuff that I'm familiar with him from, and his art's really good. The storytelling is pretty direct, easy to follow. You're not confused about who's where or doing what. What do I want to say here? It's kind of moody, kind of detailed, but like I said, it's not murky, not confusing at all. He's able to do the weird, otherworldly stuff. His human figures seem realistic. The crazy things with the smoke and the lights and the, like I said, wispy figures and all that sort of stuff is really great as well. Let's see here. Now what I have, the physical thing I have, like I said, is Doctor Strange Special Edition. If you look for this, you should be able to find a pretty decent edition, for pretty cheap. I'd be really amazed if you had to spend more than $4, $5, $6 for it. And it's a good deal because you get 4 70-size comics, no ads, and it's all story. Something like, let me see here. You get 71 pages of story here, I mean, you can't beat that deal. You're not going to find 71 pages for $5 anywhere these days. And he also has the reproductions of the let's see here, the covers for, like I said, 1, 2, 4, and 5, and it's also like a nice little pinup by Brunner. Oh, and the cover art, you get a cool wraparound cover drawn by Bernie Wrightson, who's another 70s horror comics legend. So check that out. So I guess that's it. I got to thank you very much for listening. Tell me what you think, and everybody, you all have a great day.